Listen up, presented by Dempsey's in Sportsland. Ryan, it's the last check-in, the second one of this season, as we are getting very hyped up and set on this Saturday evening as we go on again Monday evening after the UConn Huskies face off against the Texas Longhorns. A lot to look in to this game. Longhorns are ranked number 3. I'm not looking I'm sure you're the same way. I'm not looking so much at these rankings, number 6 and number 3. I'm just not, because I tell you, a lot of key players, and I'm sure you have them listed, a lot of key players, especially one that led the team with 3 points, with 3-pointers, I believe, last season for the Longhorns. She's gone. And then you have a lot like Nelson Adoda. You have a lot of key players that are gone for UConn. So a very different matchup. But again, let's save the predictions for last and the score. But what do you have in this game? This should be actually a very exciting one for you because finally, you told me, Phil, finally a ranked opponent.
Yeah, and a pretty high one at that. And of course, I guess the AP poll rankings for the first week will come out on Monday, I'm assuming. But, we don't really pay attention to the rankings over here. They're all just numbers, right? You just got to go out there and win. At least that's the mentality that I think everybody should have. But a couple quick updates. Shout out to the UConn football program. They beat
Yes,
Liberty
I'm
on
glad.
Saturday and became bowl eligible for the first time since 2015. That was quite a game.
UConn. Yep.
And all the students and fans there stormed the field. That was a great set in there on Saturday evening. And the other one I want to bring up is the Caroline Ducharme injury. I haven't seen anything. I've been checking my phone, trying to look it up. Haven't seen any updates. I don't know if you've seen anything or not, but I haven't seen any updates. I guess we'll find out later Sunday or possibly before the game Monday. And I'm assuming if she is out, that the starting lineup would stay the same that we have seen for the exhibition game and the same one that we did on Thursday night for the first game. But moving on to this game versus Texas, of course, Texas played Louisiana on Friday. Texas won that game 68-45. And for the roster, Texas has 3 senior guards, quite a lot of transfers. Sonya Morris, very familiar name, transferred from DePaul. We have seen her, play versus UConn plenty of times for 4 seasons. She was in there with DePaul with the Blue Demons, and look for her to make an impact in this game. Very electric scorer. She struggled a little bit in that game on Friday night when they did play Louisiana. Much for the whole roster and for everybody that did play in that game. Texas kind of struggled shooting the ball in that game, but either way, I think Sonya Morris is a very good scorer, and I would expect her to play a pretty good X factor in this game. So another senior guard, Anissa Gutierrez, only played 7 games last season. She did not play in either of the exhibition matches, and she did not play Friday night. I don't really expect for us to see her on Monday. And this third senior guard, Shaylee Gonzalez, is a transfer from BYU. She spent 3 seasons there and now comes to Texas. Another very good scorer for this Texas team. And the two big players down there in the paint for Texas, Elia Morse, sophomore forward, and junior forward Deona Gaston. They're the bigs for Texas. Very good defenders, and they can also score. Like I mentioned, this whole starting lineup for Texas, all 5 of these players, very good defensive team, very great scorers. They struggled a little bit against Louisiana, but I'm expecting them to bounce back and be ready for UConn. And also for the bench and filling out for Rory Harmon as well. She's supposed to be one of the starting guards on this team, but she did not play in their season opener. I believe she had a boot on her foot, listed as day today, but I don't think we're going to see her Monday either. Very, very unlikely, in my opinion, that she will play. And filling in for her spot is junior guard Shea Holly. Now moving on to the bench, Texas 6'4" freshman forward Amina Muhammad played a couple minutes in that game versus Louisiana. Taylor Jones, 6'4" junior forward. A lot of size on this Texas team. That could be a problem for UConn. She's also another transfer coming over from Oregon State. and yet another transfer on this team, junior forward Kahija Faye, transfer from Texas Tech. So a lot of size, a lot of defenders, and a lot of scoring for this Texas team. I expect this to be a pretty even matchup.
Yeah, and the player that I was talking about was Aaliyah Matheru for Texas, for the Texas Longhorns. They lost her. She entered the transfer portal. So again, she was the team's best 3-point shooter, Ryan. And second on the team in steals. And I remember her last season playing. So I'm just looking in this game. I'm looking for who steps up in her position. I believe the last game against who was it against Louisiana?
Yeah.
I believe it was Taylor Jones that led all scores with 21, I believe. So again, yeah, I mean, head coach Vic Schaefer for these Texas Longhorns, he knows he has to be ready. You know, he knows that every head coach of the opposition of UConn women's basketball knows that they have to be ready, you know, especially entering this kind of atmosphere. And I hope it is wild in there, you know, Monday night. I hope it is packed. I hope it is crazy loud because guess what? These Texas Longhorns are no pushover. All right. And with that said, I think that it is very important. Usually I'm not leaning towards who is away and home, but again, with the crowd noise and communication, I think that's a big key in this game. You know, right. I think it may come down to just a couple steals, you know, a couple possessions. I'm expecting a very close ball game. With that said, we will get into the comments from the last video, Ryan, when the UConn Huskies women's basketball team went 1-0 to start this season. UConn Huskies down Northeastern in season opener. We will start with Mr. Fahrenheit. Laugh out loud. All these praises for a win against Northeastern.
You know, I love that comment because, you know, we talk about it a lot how UConn has a weak schedule and they play in a weak conference, but the Big East right now is undefeated, and UConn has a really, really tough schedule, in my opinion. And not only their non-conference schedule against all these ranked opponents we've already went over, but also the Big East seems to be pretty darn good this season. Like I was mentioning during the off season there, when we were going over the schedule for UConn, Creighton seems to be good. I think Villanova is another team that's going to be pretty good, and a couple other teams as well you can throw in the mix. So you know, it's just a warm-up game for UConn, and you know what I have to say to that person would be, you know, they play Texas on Monday, and then they turn around and play NC State, two very good ranked opponents, which that doesn't matter if they're high in the ranks. We just know that the two very good basketball programs, just like UConn, that are going to be a real test for this team. So we'll see what UConn's made of after this Texas game, and certainly after the NC State game as well.
I agree with Iva, and I mentioned this before. These girls have a lot of class, and they don't say anything. But I did say they got to be tired of the no ice, no page. How are they going to be able to win? And that was from Bon Riley.
Yeah, and that is one of the main questions we discussed during the all season with these two big injuries. And, you know, I think we're going to find it out certainly later down the road into the season as we get deeper and deeper, heading towards March. And I think UConn, it doesn't really seem to be that much of a concern right now, considering how they played in the opener versus Northeastern. Of course, we talk about, well, Northeastern isn't really that good. And that brings me back to the point now where they're playing two very good opponents this upcoming week against Texas and NC State. But I think, you know, more of the concern comes down the road towards the end of the season when they get into the Big East Championship and they fight for the Big East crown. And of course, assuming, obviously, I think we all expect UConn certainly to make it into March Madness. And when they do, I think that becomes more of the concern, losing Paige Beckers and losing Ice Brady. I think that's when you kind of get a little concerned because it's one and done in March Madness. You don't get any second chances.
The disruptive one, Patterson is really good.
Yeah, she is. You said that right for sure. She's really, really good. We found that out it certainly in that opener versus Northeastern. It's really, really exciting when you see a player from high school. And there is a lot of hype surrounding Ayanna Patterson because of her size, and UConn's finally getting a big player with a lot of size that can also score the basketball. And she seems to be a real force in the paint. And like I keep saying, I really expect her to receive big minutes off the bench. And she's really one of the impact players for UConn this season. And she's going to continue to get big minutes off the bench and can possibly, maybe even see a couple starts here and there.
Rachel Fight says, I think Dorka was great on rebounding, but she needs to get better at putting the ball back up strong. Even if she can't get the bucket, draw the foul and go to the line. If Dorka gets better with that, she'll be awesome. Ayanna was solid and Aaliyah was stellar. Caroline will be needed, especially in bigger games. Depth is essential. Well, this is a big game Monday night, Ryan. So that's a lot to talk about there as far as Caroline goes. Mentally, even though if she's in great shape after that wrist injury and the surgery, whatever she had, I think it's a lot of mental toughness that goes into it, especially with women's basketball. Now, I'm not saying anything is different between men versus women. I'm just saying the fact in this case, women's basketball, strictly women's basketball. I think it's tough mental factor. Obviously we have to all face it. That was gruesome. All right. That was a gruesome injury. We remember seeing that play. I still see it in the back of my mind. And as soon as she went down, and you could actually hear her, screaming, it was like like a Halloween horror movie. I mean, it was pretty bad. So we could hear her screaming all the way from the side view of the camera, wherever that was. But to get back down to it, I think that if you want to obviously break down this comment, Rachel Fight, but I think when you talk about Dorka, it may be just the mental factor of her trying to forget about that injury.
And it was a very gruesome injury, and we're so glad she came back for this season. And we kind of expect her to play a huge role in why UConn is going to win a lot of games. And her matching with Aaliyah down there, they seem to be pretty good together in the painted area. And of course, what we love so much about Dorka Juhas is that she can go outside, shoot from the mid range, and when she gets open, or she is left open outside of the 3-point range, she's not afraid to shoot out there either. And she can knock down a couple 3-pointers. So that just adds to why she's such a great player for UConn. And certainly getting rebounds, getting putbacks, I certainly think that she can improve on that. And I think she will going towards continuing through the season. But yeah, her and Aaliyah certainly seem to be pretty good, and bringing Ayanna off the bench, it seems to be working pretty good, and bringing Aubrey Griffin off as well. So UConn, like we kept mentioning during the off season, despite the injuries, they seem to be still pretty good in terms of depth.
Aaron Davis, AZ is this another regular. Thanks for coming through, Aaron. AZ missed open threes tonight, but she was bringing the ball up much faster than last year. Patterson got UConn extra possessions and played really hard and did get some questionable calls. Nikki defense kept Northeastern from getting into any type of, I guess you mean he means Nika. Defense kept Northeastern from getting into any type of flow, and Dorka stuffed the stats. The good news is students rock the house. The bad news is DeBerry is done, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that, well, speaking about the crowd noise, I think that, like you kind of mentioned, I think that's going to be a huge factor for this game on Monday. I don't think it really matters too much about when you're talking about professional sports, but I think on a college level, I think that's something that definitely plays a huge role, talking about college football, college basketball. When you get the home crowd behind you, all the students, they definitely play a huge role in the success of the team, affecting the communication and just bringing the team, getting them hyped up. The energy levels are there. So I think it plays a huge role, especially in Storrs, Connecticut, the way the fans are, certainly. And I know that I, come to realize there's a lot of people that are down in Amari DeBerry, and she's kind of off to a slow start. But, Aubrey Griffin, I think she missed about 580 some days, I believe, without her playing a game. And she looks pretty darn good out there coming off the bench. And for Amari, hopefully, she's kind of in the same situation where she didn't miss as many days, but she missed some games, or a good many games last season. And of course, played a little bit during March Madness, even played in the national championship game a little bit. But she really hasn't made quite the impact that I know a lot of you were expecting. And certainly we kind of expected her to make more of an impact for this team as well. So hopefully she can kind of find her footing going along towards the end of the season. I don't want to see her transfer. I know a couple people were bringing that up, but hopefully she can kind of find her footing, find her role, continue to practice hard and play hard, and hopefully she gets more minutes and is able to impact the game a little bit more.
That's all we had time for. We appreciate everybody coming through. Ryan, predictions. I have UConn in this matchup. Believe it or not, I have UConn winning Monday against Texas, 65-60. All right. And if that's not close, and I don't know what is, 65-60 UConn. And the player of the game, a new challenge for this season. She's shown me a lot. She has shown me a lot. I get it. It was against two smaller schools, actually. Hey, I'm going AZ Fudd again. I'm going AZ Fudd again. I think she shows up in this game. I predicted her name in the season opener, and I was right about that. She showed up. I'm going AZ Fudd, star player of the game, 65-60. A UConn win as they move to 2-0 and impress a lot of people.
Well, I got a similar, well, not a similar score. I have a little bit of higher scoring game than you predicted. I have UConn winning this game 84-70. I think it's going to be a little bit high scoring, and hopefully UConn can bring the same level of intensity that we saw. And of course, Texas kind of struggled shooting. I don't really expect that to continue. I think they'll come out and shoot well in this game, but hopefully UConn can bring that same level of defensive intensity that we know that they have. Player of the game, it's so tough for me to pick this because there's so many good players. I'm going to go with Nika Mule. I think her defensive intensity, I don't really expect her to score a lot of points. She never does, but just her intensity alone and how she keeps everybody in the game, her energy level, I think she's going to be the X factor in this game. I think she'll be the player of the game in this one.
The UConn Huskies and Texas Longhorns. Boy, we've been waiting for this matchup for a while, and we'll be back Monday evening to recap it all right here, Phil and Rye on Listen Up.